It's Sunday morning, and every decent man and woman is listening to Test Miles with Nick Miles on FM News 101 KXL. Buckle in.
Sunday morning, time to talk cars for the next 60 minutes on your weekly automotive radio show. I'm Nick Miles, and you're listening to America's automotive radio show. Test Miles, locally created, nationally celebrated. I'm your host, and we're joined by Sean Walker, Brad Boyer, and Zhenya the intern. Obviously, we cannot avoid the lead story in the local news this morning. Volkswagen. This is bad news for the company. It's really going to hurt them, and I don't see any way out for them. Basically, they were caught cheating on the test.
Is this the New England Patriots philosophy? If you're not cheating, you're not trying?
Well, I think so. Unfortunately, tomorrow I'm heading to New York to see the unveiling of the new VW Passat, which happens tomorrow night. I'm very much looking forward to the car, not very much looking forward to the politics which is going to go around that. This is a huge blow to a car company who's been struggling to get Americans to like their vehicles, and I expect to see a lot of staff changes at the top.
And the ones we like are the TDIs, the diesels.
They are the
48 miles to the gallon and fun to drive.
And now we know why, because they were basically cheating on their emissions test.
And $18 billion. That's with a B.
Again, that's estimated.
Is the estimated cost.
Yeah, estimated
for
cost.
the recalling of 500,000 vehicles. That's if anybody takes them back.
Yeah, who wants to go less miles per gallon? You know what you'll see? You'll see the Democrats take them back because they want to do better for the environment. And you'll see the Republicans keep the cars because they want to get better gas miles.
Oh, I mean, that's the reason you went out and bought that car was because you wanted 50 miles to the gallon. Now you're going to do an update and give me 30?
Exactly.
No.
This week I have been driving the Acura RDX, which is a 5-door premium crossover. It is the smallest Acura SUV, CUV that they make. A strong fuel efficiency without a diesel. V6 gains more power this time around. Roomy cabin, list of really nice standard features in this vehicle. Only one configuration for the drivetrain. It's not as sporty as, I think, some of its rivals, but still a very solid car. 3.5 V6, 279 horsepower. You can get that super handling all-wheel drive, or you can get the two-wheel drive, front-wheel drive. 29 miles a gallon without cheating on the highway. Its competitors, the Audi Q5, the Lincoln MKZ, the MKC, the BMW X3, Mercedes GLK, Cadillac's SRX, Volvo's XC60, Infinity's QX50. So a lot of competitors in that class. I do think this is an excellent vehicle. It starts at $36,105, and they are saying now that this will be, later this month, hopefully they will confirm that this will be one of the only luxury vehicles that will make both the IIHS and the NHTSA's list of top safety picks or 5-star safety picks. So that good for Acura. The other car I was driving was what Brad talked about last week, was the Honda HR-V, 4-door subcompact, same sort of class, a little bit smaller than the RDX. Roomy interior, really nice interior from Honda. First time I've seen a stellar interior from them, and I think the same interior is going to be in the new Civic. It really is, the engine's a little underwhelming, but you're not looking for a sports car out of this. Touchscreen interface can be frustrating sometimes, but I think when you've learned it, it's much easier. It has a 1.8-litre, 4-cylinder, 141 horsepower. That's CVT or a manual. I've driven both. I think the manual was a lot of fun, but again, probably wouldn't drive this in traffic in a manual.
What'd you think of the CVT? I thought it was a tad intrusive for me.
You know what? CVTs now, that I believe, compared to that old Jeep Patriot when they first came out, what was that, like 2000?
10 years ago? 10
yeah, probably 2004, 2005, which is like having a hairdryer on under your seat. This is so much better. And 31 miles a gallon combined, 35 on the highway. It competes with the Renegade, the Fiat 500X, the Juke, the Subaru Outback, and the Mazda CX-3. Comes in 4 different trim levels, $19,000 starting price, which I think is a good price. Brad?
I had a chance to drive a really interesting vehicle, the Hyundai Santa Fe, which is the SUV. Comes in 2 different configurations, actually built in 2 different countries. The Sport is more the 5-seater, built in Georgia, whereas the Santa Fe is a 6 or 7-seat configuration, built in Korea. And it's a vehicle that has won my wife over and swayed her from the minivan. She loved this vehicle because we had the...
Who would believe?
I know. It's 8.5 inches longer than the Sport, and it had the 6-passenger configuration, so it had the pass-through to the back seating area, and the multiple configurations plus the anti-stain seats when you're schlepping around a couple of 6-year-olds was... It won her over. It's a really impressive vehicle. I like the sharp lines on it, which aren't quite Cadillac sharp, so it's not too much in your face, but a very aggressive look for this vehicle.
You know, Peter Schreier, who has always been the Kia designer, took over both Kia and Hyundai, so he's now over Hyundai as well. And I think since he took over Hyundai, their designs have got an awful lot better.
Much better. The interior, too, is everything you'd want. The Blue Link telematics system, it worked great for me. In the short time that you have it, you get to learn it. It's not as if, like we talked about on the other vehicles, where you spend 6 months with it, was really easy.
I think the fact that you can, Hyundai have the app now, you can run their vehicles from your watch, your smartwatch. I love that. You can start it, you can do all that stuff right from your smartwatch.
Can you drive it?
No, but that's next year, I think.
Yes.
Just kidding.
And the best feature I liked was the hands-free lift gate, where you just walk behind it and the lift gate comes up.
You don't have to wave your foot underneath it.
Yeah, I think you just stand behind it for a short amount of time with the key fob
3
there.
seconds, yeah.
Yeah. So in the 3.3-liter V6, 290 horsepower, the gas mileage is okay at 18 and 25, but it is the Santa Fe version, it's a bigger SUV. It competes with like the Pathfinder.
Do they make a diesel?
No.
I knew that. I was just being cheeky.
Front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive only loses about 1 mile per gallon.
Right.
So it's way up on our to-do list. So base price for the Sport, which is the smaller one, $26,000, $31,000 for the Santa Fe, but can creep up over $41,000.
So their Sport is the base model.
It's the base model, smaller.
Whereas the American Sports are the top model.
Yes, that's right.
Of course. You know, when you in Asia too, they read from right to left. So perhaps that's why they just did it backwards. I've always seen the Sport as the top model. That was my perception too. Yeah.
So when I wasn't getting the Sport, my first thought was, oh man, I want a little nicer. But
it worked out okay.
It's fantastic.
Good. I would also tell you this morning that I got an email yesterday from Zhenya who said he had a car to review. I'm highly suspicious since he's only 14 and doesn't have a driver's license what this will entail.
Speaking of cars you should have that aren't minivans, I've been in the Ford Flex for a few weeks, and I really do enjoy this car. It's a 7-row, 5-door. I don't know what it would really compete against because there's not really many boxy cars that have all-wheel drive and 7 rows of seating.
So how have you been in it?
I've been being driven around in it because I have a friend who's...
So this is the backseat review.
Yes, it is the backseat review.
Okay.
And it's a very comfortable car. I haven't really been in a new car that has such soft seating as that Flex. I think the ride is very good. There's so much space in the back. You can fit Nettled in the back seat, in the very back seat. It's very practical, and it gets decent gas mileage. The one with the twin-turbo V6 with 350 horsepower gets you about 27 highway, 25 combined, 23 city. I think it's a very good car. I think the looks are okay. You have to get it in specific trim. I think the best-looking car is the SEL with the 20-inch rims, blue paint, and the chrome roof rails. I think that's the best-looking car with a black interior.
The problem with the Flex has always been it's been too heavy. It's been a car that's been way too heavy, and so the gas mileage that they say, I've never been able to get that good gas mileage out of it.
They're lying. They may restate.
Oh, you're thinking it could be something close to having a problem like VW?
Oh, it could be.
Ford's gas mileage, they say EcoBoost. You can have Eco or you can have Boost, but you can't have both of them. That's kind of the internal joke.
Yeah.
And did this have an Eco engine?
Yes, it had the EcoBoost and Turbo V6.
Right, so which do you prefer, the Boost or the Eco?
I think I prefer the Boost because it has 350 horsepower.
See, they're really sporty, but as soon as you put your foot down in these vehicles, you'll find that you lose the gas mileage. That's always been the problem.
Yeah, and I think the problem Ford's been sort of having is the engines. They get good praise for some of their engines, but the cars they fit them to just don't really work as well. You have twin turbo V6 in the Flex, but the Flex is very heavy, so it just doesn't really work out.
Right. It's a conundrum. Great car, just too heavy. If they could make that car out of aluminum, maybe it would be better. All right, coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about Dodge. we have the design manager from Dodge going to be on here. He's going to tell us all about what's been, what's now, what's coming, and how all the colors work on these cars. We, of course, had a long-term Durango we've been driving around. We're also going to find out about my adventures on a motorcycle, 2 wheels, got my test passed, and the person that gave me the test is going to be here to tell you all how terrible I was. And Run to the Sun's happening. John Vincent from the Portland Tribune is going to be here to tell us all about 25 cars over 2 days that'll be driving around the Northwest. You're listening to Test Miles on FM News 101 KXL. I'm Nick Miles.
It's Test Miles on FM News 101. Test Miles, like NASCAR, but with one right turn. TestMiles.com.
Welcome back to Test Miles on FM News 101 KXL, the automotive radio show live from our studios in downtown Portland. For all the latest automotive news, follow us at Twitter at Test Miles.
So, Nick, here's one up your alley. It's a fun fact. You can impress your friends. There was almost a Dodge Viper motorcycle. Dodge stuffed a Viper motor into a bike at the 2003 North American International Auto Show and called it the Tomahawk.
I actually sat on that Tomahawk. It was great until you needed to turn a corner. Then there was some issues with it.
A tad heavy?
The tires were about, a foot wide or something. It was a great vehicle. I was on my way to the Nike store yesterday when I passed a red Dodge Durango. And when I say red, I really mean it was red. In fact, the color, I think, is called a red line red. I liked it so much, I decided clearly the next time I get a Dodge, I want it to be this particular color. In fact, Dodge have some of the best-looking cars on the market today, and to give us some insight into design aspects of Dodge then, now, and in the future, joining us on the phone is Jeff Gale. Jeff is a senior designer at Dodge. Jeff, welcome to America's Automotive Radio Show. So in a simple sentence, and this might be asking to get blood out of a stone, but in a simple sentence, explain to us, Jeff, what the principles behind Dodge design are.
Well, thank you for having me on the radio show. There's a lot of different principles we work on in the Dodge studio. The main message is performance. So when you look at our products, when you see the graphics of the lights, the grille, the overall proportions of the vehicle, we really try to focus on performance, being bold, something that's different in the marketplace.
And I think they are. And one of the things that I've noticed very much with Dodge vehicles is the color. The sublime green, which almost looks like a highlighter color, that red line red. How do those colors get chosen, and how important is the color to reflecting that light?
It's very important, actually. We have a whole studio upstairs dedicated to exterior color, another area for interior. But in looking at the Durango and the new Challenger and Charger, there's many colors that we bring back that reference heritage models, such as the Sublime you mentioned. Red line red is a great color because it's a metallic. It's something that gets a lot of light in the highlight and really shows off the body lines of the Durango, for instance. You see the fender flares, the bulging forms on the body side and whatnot, but those colors are very important to kind of sell that message of performance and really create a striking vehicle on the road when you see them.
It's kind of difficult for me to sort of push my brain to think of things like how do you design a vehicle to look menacing and muscling when it's stationary and moving as well? So there's obviously things that you specifically do at Dodge to make vehicles look kind of menacing.
Sort of. There's many different words I think we use in the studio to describe the look that we try to emulate, and the look that we try to capture attention from people. And when you see the vehicles going down the road, I mean, there's people like to think that there's a brow or an attitude above the headlights that we try to put in there. The Durango, for instance, as you referenced, is one of those where we've got almost a cross-car graphic read to the front. So the new blacktop package that you see on those for $15, with the black grille, the dark headlights, it's really kind of got a cross-car read to it, almost muscle car-like. We really wanted that car to appear as
What I'm going to do there is just ask Anna to give you a quick call back there, Jeff. We seem to be having some problems on the line, so she'll call you right back. I would tell you we had this Dodge Durango. We've been test driving it for about a 6 months, sorry. We had it for 6 months. We ordered it new from the factory, got to choose all the accoutrements in it. One of the things I do and don't regret with this vehicle was we chose a V6 engine when Dodge is so famous for their V8s. And I wanted the V6 because that's probably what a family would order, and the Citadel version, which is kind of the top of the line. We chose all the bits and pieces on it. But at the same time, I kind of regret not having that big American muscle power.
That V6 still... Excuse me, that V6 still had plenty of power. The only time you'd ever really notice is if you're towing a heavy boat or something. And even then, I still think it'd be able to go up a hill just fine.
No, I think it was adequate. When you get into those V8s from Dodge, it's absolutely unbelievable.
I mean, it is iconic. You feel a little wimpy.
We got Jeff back with us now, I think. Jeff, are you with us again? No, not quite yet. They're still getting back on the line. Jeff, are you with us again?
I am. Sorry about that.
That's okay. No, it's just the quality of the phone line. So how important is that crosshair grille to Dodge? It seems to be the one theme in the vehicles which goes across all of the different models.
So we have the crosshair that we've evolved from obviously what was a previous brand Q as far as being tied up with Ram, but we've moved onto a split crosshair that you see on most of them, as you referenced. But when you get up into the SRT range, speaking of Charger, Challenger, and whatnot, we've removed it, and one of the reasons for that is cooling. So we like to keep everything in the front functional, but still have an identity to it that's just pure Dodge. So we focused mainly on that kind of cross-car read to the cars, the detailing that you put in the headlights, and how can you make this thing look like a performance vehicle and have that function that backs it up.
Now, let me ask you this question about it. Is that idea of doing a different look for every different trim level, is that something that Dodge is continuing into the future?
Well, as you know, we can't comment on too many future products, but as you can see the lineage between all of them, there's evolution that we take on every one of them, right? The Dart had a split crosshair in it. You see it's a little bit different shape on the Durango. And as you look at the Challenger being a bit of a heritage play, there isn't one in there, but the Charger has a little bit different one. So in the future, you'll see us start to evolve those shapes even further. So we've got some fun things that we're working on in the studio, and it should be interesting, and I'm anxious to hear what people think of them when we come out with them.
Talking about the front, let's switch to the back there. One of the things that Dodge adopted is these different LED lights at the back doing this racetrack tail lights. Is that something that is continuing throughout the vehicle brand? Are you going to start to see that on every single one of the vehicles, or was it just specifically for some of the vehicles?
Oh, no, that was... It's kind of an interesting story about the racetrack taillights. When we first came out with the Charger in 2011, we had gotten word back that the dealers were parking the cars with the rear end toward the street and leaving the lights on. And it was one of those things to try and get people into the dealers. So we knew we had something there. We knew we had a hook visually that would really that people recognized, right? So we started building that throughout the brand on all of our products. And you see that on all of them now, the Durango, the Charger, the Dart, the Challenger's a little bit different, being more of a heritage play, but it still has what we call a split racetrack on the back of it. But what's really nice about it is that it's smooth, seamless. You can't really tell where exactly to pinpoint the lights, but it's something really kind of... LEDs offer so much in the way of creativity for us. It's really nice.
Jeff Gale from Dodge, thank you so much. We enjoyed your Durango. It's probably been one of the best test vehicles that we've ever had on a long term. If you want to find out more, go to Dodge.com. When we return, let's find out what 2 wheels are like instead of 4. We'll be talking to Jeff Earls a little bit about Team Oregon. That's next on Test Miles. I'm Nick Miles.
Throw it in neutral and coast in with testmiles.com. Favorite us, tweet us, friend us, love us, all at testmiles.com.
If you want to see some of the vehicles that appeared at the Frankfurt Auto Show this week, including the Porsche Mission E, check out our YouTube channel. It's Nick, Nikjmiles, and you can see some of those new cars.
Here's a fun fact so you can impress your friends with. The very first Harley-Davidson motorcycle used a tomato can for a carburetor.
Not sure I'd be wanting to ride that. Some weeks ago, I had Jeff Earls in our studio to talk about Team Oregon. If you missed the interview, shame on you. But Jeff talked to us about riding a bike, the principles of taking Team Oregon's beginner course, and how bike riding is very, very different than driving a car. A few weeks ago, I actually took the class, and shock and horror, yes, I passed. We asked Jeff to come back and talk about his struggle with teaching me and if he has fully recovered. Welcome to the studio, Jeff. All right, be honest. How did I do?
Oh, thanks for having me back, Nick. Well, to be honest, the facial tick is starting to recede a little bit. But in all honesty, you did very well. You were right in the range of what we see for an average student coming in and taking the basic motorcycle class.
I really work on being average, and I'm very glad I passed. So let's take it through the course a little bit. Now I have a little more perspective of what we did. So it's a 3-day course. It happens at multiple locations. I think you have 70 instructors, don't you?
We have roughly 70 instructors in the Portland area alone. We're over 250 statewide.
Right. So you put a lot of classes on, but even so, I noticed how popular you are. We spent weeks trying to schedule me into somewhere I could actually fit in to find a class that you want. You have to book about 2 months in advance.
Yeah, we try to keep some classes open, but at the peak of the season, we are running full bore on all of our sites. We're probably on target to hit something on the order of 13,000 students taught this year alone.
Wow, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. So it's a 3-day course. I know you have several different courses. So some people have experience, and you have, but this was the basic beginner, I know nothing course. So we started on a Friday night, which is just classroom, right?
Right. Just classroom Friday night, just getting you up and being ready to ride our bikes Saturday morning, and just the basics.
And we went around the room, we talked about ourselves, you talked about the course, we did a couple of chapters in the manual that you gave us. The most impressive thing about the course was Saturday morning. We're out on the range, we're there with all the motorcycles, we're sitting on the motorcycles ready to go, and Jeff repeats 18 names of everybody verbatim. He knows everybody's name in the class. He only met the day before. How did you do that? Did you spend all night with flashcards?
No, years and years of practice. I mean, I've been teaching these classes for 20 years, and so I've started to get a little sense for that. And I like to have fun with that particular aspect. But I was calling your names all Friday night, and so I can associate a face with a name then.
Right. It was very impressive how you just went through the whole class and you called everybody one after the other. I was most impressed by that. So you assigned us motorcycles, and then there was this sort of walkie-ridey part. I don't know what the official name is. This where you sort of, you put it in gear and you take it out of gear and you kind of move a little bit. You go straight forward. It was very basic, sort of, this is how the bike works. This is how you use it. Right?
It was very basic. And most people think about, how do I get the motorcycle moving? And it's a clutch and throttle exercise, is to get a feel for that clutch release, where it starts to engage. Okay, not go too far. Let's keep it under control. Because we're training new physical hand-eye coordination behaviors. You haven't had, in the car, you haven't had a clutch in your hand.
Right.
You haven't used the throttle with your hand.
Right.
And so, the mechanics can be somewhat the same, but how you operate them is very different in a car.
I would tell anybody, if you want to be a better car driver, go and take this course, because your appreciation for motorcyclists and your understanding of the challenges that they have is immense. Even if I was not to pass the course or not to pursue riding a motorcycle ever, and they frightened me. We'd had this conversation that I came off when I was 16. I broke my foot on a motorcycle. I wasn't too keen about getting back on, and yet I would say by the end of the course, I had enough confidence to go and get the endorsement on my license, go buy a bike, which I've done, go get it, go do all the things that I was taught in the class. But the appreciation and the understanding of the challenges that a motorcyclist has, and the misconceptions too. I think a lot of things that you teach in the class, people don't realize. And one is, what's the percentage of motorcycle accidents that are a single vehicle? 75, is it?
It's actually, when we look at our fatal statistics, it's typically about 50%
Right.
are single vehicle accidents.
Right.
And then of the remainder, which are multi-vehicle, we typically see that 2/3 of those are the fault of the rider.
Right.
And so it's rider judgment
Right.
is the biggest problem we have out there.
Everybody's always talking about cars are the problem. Cars are the problem. No, I was really surprised. And then I think the percentage of accidents that happen on a curve because a rider fails to negotiate a curve correctly. And that's what this class taught me. How do you turn a corner? It's not like driving a car. You move your head in different ways. You move your body in different ways. Even strange things like you push your handlebar the direction you're turning. I had to ask Jeff aside to re-explain that you push the direction you're turning because your brain says you should be pushing the opposite handlebar to turn, but you don't. You actually push the handlebar towards the direction you're turning, and that's because of the lean of the bike, right?
Yeah, a single track vehicle behaves differently than a four-wheeled vehicle. And the misperception is that you steer it.
Right.
And we need to train a different behavior so that you understand that if you want to go left, I press forward on the left bar and it pushes the bike onto the side of the tire and lets you lean the bike, which is how it turns.
Right.
Bicycle works the same way, but you don't feel it as much.
Right. And those sort of misconceptions, the things that you don't understand. One of the things that we talked about before I came on, and I really would encourage anybody to get hold of Team Oregon and take this course because the things that you will learn. The road is not your friend. And I have learned this riding my motorcycle around Portland. Roads are horrible. I mean, you come across a manhole cover that is half an inch above the pavement. That's painful if you hit it head on at speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things is in the basic course, we can teach you how to ride physically.
Right.
What the other more important part is how to start to learn to think like a motorcyclist. And it's different than driving a car. In the car, you're not going to care that one of your wheels slips on a patch of wet leaves. You will care on a motorcycle.
Right.
And so we have to view the road differently. We have to view things like lane position differently to be able to best balance visibility, space cushion, maintaining escape routes, protecting that lane, and as you mentioned, avoid surface hazards. So there's a lot of things that we do differently in terms of how we think about operating the vehicle in traffic.
I'm definitely a fan of Team Oregon now, and if I can find the time, I'll be taking more courses. Positioning yourself in the road. I'm such a small, thin piece of material compared to the size of an SUV or a truck in front or behind me. So how I position myself so that driver can see me on either side, especially coming up to an intersection. How do you position yourself so the driver behind you can see you? So the driver who comes up behind you sees you and doesn't get too close to the car, all those type of things. I mean, I would never have known what to do if I hadn't taken this course.
That could have been something as simple as being able to have a little bit of lateral displacement on your taillight versus the taillight of the car in front of you to show that you're actually there.
Yeah, I mean, simple things that you don't realize. Like, obviously, I bought a Honda Bolt, and that's what I've been riding around. And one of the things that you teach in the course is, if you get into a situation where things may be getting a little hairy, turn on your high beams so the driver can see you. So if you feel a driver is not noticing you and you need to get their attention because they could be changing lanes, you just turn, and I've done that, and boy, does it get people's attention in just a second.
Yeah, and then you turn it back down.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially when I'm going down 82nd in Clackamas and I have someone in the turn lane and they want to turn left, and you're like, did they see me? Didn't they see me? And they start to creep forward, and you turn that high beam on and the brakes go on immediately. Like, oh, it's a motorcycle I didn't see. Right. Those type of things. I mean, the education was great. So if somebody wants to take the motorcycle course, which I know everybody listening to KXL right now will be going online to take the course, where do they go? How do they sign up?
The best place to go is to teamoregon.org. You can put that, or just put Team Oregon Motorcycle into the search engine of your choice, and you will find on our site. We do all our registrations through the online process, or you can call our 1-800 number, 1-800-545-9944, and search your region for, basically use the Find a Course tool. We have several sites here in the Portland area and many around the state as well, and you can find the basic or other classes that way.
So I just got through the practical by the skin of my chinny chin chin. The hardest part for me was the slalom at low speed. But I think through your coaching and you're saying, you know what, you'll get better in time, keep practicing, just keep using the principles that you learned in the class. I'm very grateful to Team Oregon, and I'm really glad I did it. And what's the next stage for me? What do we do next? What's the next course?
The next course that we recommend is our rider skill practice, or we call it our RSP. Come back next season after you've had a chance to be out riding that Honda Rebel for, several months, kind of cementing the basic skills, and we'll bring you back out on the range for it's a half day.
Right.
You can use your own bike, and we'll up the speeds a little bit. We'll work on some habits you might have picked up over there.
I'm ready to do it. I'm excited about it. And I also need to thank Pat Shearer, who's the chief engineer at the CW station here in Portland CW, for helping me obtain a motorcycle and really pushing me to get onto the Team Oregon course. So thank you, Pat. You don't know what you've done. You're listening to Test Miles on FM News 101 KXL. Coming up next, 25 cars, 25 journalists, a trip through the Northwest, which will be to remember for years to come. It does happen every year. We'll talk about Run to the Sun with John Vincent from the Portland Tribune next.
It's Test Miles on FM News 101. Test Miles, like NASCAR, but with one right turn. TestMiles.com.
Live from our studios in downtown Portland, America's Car Radio Show. We'd like to thank you for being part of the Car Nation. For more fun facts about cars, we have a Facebook page. It's Test Miles ENT, Test Miles Entertainment.
Here's a fun fact. James Bond actually drove Bentleys, not Aston Martins in the books. James Bond drove a 4.5 liter as well as a few other sedans.
He's also driven BMWs and a few other vehicles as well. Although, did you know this? Here's my fun fact. That when you become James Bond, when you're chosen to be James Bond, you get given a free Aston Martin.
Woo.
That's why I've been vying to be James Bond a few times. I haven't made it in the last 300,000, I don't think. I didn't get voted on. The Northwest Automotive Press Association is a group of journalists primarily in the Northwest, as the name would suggest. They have some significant events through the year, and this next one is the jewel in their crown. It's called Run to the Sun. 25 cars, 25 different journalists over 2 days. John Vincent is here from the Portland Tribune to tell us more. John, where is the event taking place this year?
This time we're out of Seattle, and we got a couple great loops planned, one around Mount Rainier and one out on the Kitsap Peninsula.
So if you're in the Seattle area and you see a parade of 25 I must own cars in
25 cars you can't afford.
Yes. Well, I know a few of them you probably can.
Yeah.
So what's in the lineup?
We have some cars that have never been to the Northwest before. Mercedes-Benz S-Class Maybach, Rolls-Royce Ghost. It's been around for a couple of weeks here, floating around Portland, but it hasn't been to Seattle yet.
That's a Ghost 2, right?
Ghost 2.
Yeah, the latest edition with the LED headlights, or
right.
the LED rings around the lights.
And then rumbling through will be the Viper ACR.
Now that's an interesting car because it's particularly set up for a track car.
Right.
You think Dodge are happy for all these 25 journalists to be driving a track car through the streets of Seattle area?
I'm guessing they'll have somebody in the passenger seat saying, do you know what you're doing?
Right.
Don't push that right pedal.
I'm borrowing Sean's motorcycle helmet right now to ride my motorcycle. I was thinking of taking it up there and just casually putting it on before I got in the car to drive, waiting for the reaction of the Dodge OEM to see what would happen. What else is on the list?
We have the new Honda Accord. Actually, the hottest version of the Accord, which is the V6 with a manual transmission.
Is this the 2-door or the 4-door version?
I believe it's the 2-door.
Right. I think that was the plan. This is a sport version. They've gone for the jewel-eyed headlights, which was really Acura's jewel in the crown, but they seem to be putting it in the Hondas now as well.
Interesting decision, because that was a brand distinction, and it no longer is a brand distinction for Acura.
Maybe it's, although I do think Acura are doing a lot more than they have in the last few years. A lot of the Acura stuff is drifting down into the Hondas.
Quickly.
Very quickly. What else you got?
We have the Charger Hellcat.
Oh,
707 horsepower.
Yeah, out of the Challenger and the Charger, I do prefer the Charger.
Same here. It's a more drivable car.
You can scare 4 people instead of just one other person.
5.
5. Well, you can scare 4 people.
Oh, okay. If you're not scared yourself.
Yes. What else?
2016 WRX STI, the Hyper Blue Special Edition.
Yeah, this is the first time it's ever going to be driven by a journalist because the Hyper Blue is just coming out.
And they're not making many of them.
No, and there's a few other cars in that class, an R-Spec, not an R-Spec, a VW Golf R.
Golf R?
Yeah. There's a Veloster Turbo in there.
Veloster Turbo, the new Maxima. The sporty version of the new Maxima is coming.
They call that four-door sports car.
Yes.
4DSC.
Right. Back to the mid-90s when they were 40SCs.
I really like it. I like the feature in that Maxima where you have something on the navigation screen and you can swipe it over. It goes between the gauges.
Like your phone.
Yeah, exactly. God,
toss your navigation over to the center cluster right in front of you.
Cars are getting so advanced. They're almost like my cell phone now. We got an F-Type as well.
We do. We have the F-Type Coupe coming. We have the Alfa Romeo 4C Spider.
That's always a winner.
Topless Spider.
No, just looking outside, it's pretty grey today. This is going to be Seattle this week. Do you think we're going to be able to have some of the tops down of these vehicles?
50 degrees and no rain, and the top will be off the car.
Okay.
You're not a true Northwestern if you don't have the top down.
A Northwesterner? Yeah, I'm not, honestly.
Seat heaters.
I like to be warm.
Seat heaters. You're good to go.
This is why the neck scarf in these cars like Mercedes works really well.
Yeah, air scarf in the Mercedes.
You can have the top down and still not freeze to death. Anything else of note on the list?
Cadillac ATS V, the hot version of the ATS.
That's nice. Are they also bringing something else? Oh, they got a Stingray in there too?
Got a Corvette Stingray and a Buick Regal GS.
Nice. Lots of good fun cars coming your way, and Run to the Sun. If you're in the Seattle area, you'll see us driving it around. You'll start to see things in the Portland Tribune, in the Oregonian, on TV stations around the Portland area of this event, because all the journalists who are automotive journalists will be drifting up to Seattle this week to take part in it. I'm sure we'll have a discussion about it next week. John, thank you for being on the show. We'll have you back again soon. You're sort of our staple go-to local guy.
Thank you.
And Test Miles 24/7 at testmiles.com. Twitter, Facebook, all your social medias on the internet webs. You can also .com us. I'm Nick Miles. We'll see you next week.